Video games are a billion-dollar industry, with budgets and scales of titles reaching that of Hollywood blockbuster levels. And like Hollywood, gaming is subject to the flavor of the moment genres and yearly releases we've all come to expect. Every year the bar is raised, games get bigger, louder, with more detail in every single step your character takes. It's hard to fathom where we can go from here, but we've gotten this far, so the only way to go is up. But sometimes, a game doesn't need all that glitz, the glamour, or even the budget. Instead of shooting everything in sight or having a gripping tale, we can have a game about farming. In Stardew Valley, you inherit a farm from your deceased grandfather after getting fed up with the monotony of day-to-day life. Eventually, the player moves to the quaint little area known as Stardew Valley with plenty to explore, farm, fish, fight, meet, and more. While Stardew Valley is certainly a very colorful and vibrant game, it's also nothing we haven't seen before. The sprites look right out of a Super Nintendo game, but at the same time, look a lot like the JRPG titles from that era. Everything looks like it should, from the animals to the fruit, and it's not bad, in fact they're good, especially the portraits, but the thing is, visuals are probably the weakest link in Stardew Valley. Music takes a back seat in Stardew Valley. The songs you'll hear are typically pretty sparse, save for a couple of themes for the towns or other areas. Instead, Stardew Valley fills your ears with the sound of nature, which makes plenty of sense. Your character is trying to find their roots and get out of the rat race, so hearing birds chirping or the wind blowing is quite calming. There's nothing high-octane or pulse-pounding in Stardew Valley, and that's okay. It's everything it needs to be, just putting the player at ease. If you're a video game person, you probably noticed that Stardew Valley looks and plays a lot like Harvest Moon, the series that's been all about farming since the Super Nintendo. But Stardew Valley is much more than a Harvest Moon clone. Elements from Animal Crossing, Zelda, and even a bit of Terraria and Minecraft are in there too. Pick your poison on that last one. In truth, farming is only part of something far bigger. Instead of being the main focus, farming is just a means to an end to give you a way to explore more of what Stardew Valley has to offer, like the vast array of fish to catch, the huge community center to rebuild, or the mines that seem to just go on forever. With every action you perform in Stardew Valley, your character's stats will continue to rise. Find some berries in a bush, that's going to up your foraging. Beat up a bunch of monsters in the caves, combat's going to go up. They're all very self-explanatory and easy to pick up on. And the sheer amount of content crammed into Stardew Valley is staggering, with plenty of hidden secrets and extras to find and unlock. It also might be the game's biggest fault, too. Stardew Valley just kind of tosses you in and doesn't explain a whole lot along the way. Expect to reference the game's wiki a lot, especially early on. Once you get the ball rolling and the first few days go by, each part of the game will make sense. Stardew Valley doesn't work in real time, but rather in the game's own day system. Typically, days only last about 20 minutes or so, give or take, which you'll use every second wisely of once your farm expands. Shops and townspeople are typically up by 9, giving you a 3-hour gap within the game to do chores before moving on. And that sounds as if it'd be monotonous, the word chores, but the more you progress, the better equipment and craftable items you'll unlock before eventually just knocking them out altogether. Plus, none of it feels like chores in the first place, mainly because Stardew Valley is strangely satisfying. Seeing your crops and animals grow progressively proves you're doing things right, while getting more money and unlocking more areas to explore and interact with will give you plenty to do. If anything, the real problem most gamers are going to have with Stardew Valley is finding the ability to stop. One more day each time for more money, crops, fish. Stardew Valley's hooks run deep. Stardew Valley is filled with plenty of goofy and endearing characters to befriend and socialize with. Granted, they're all pretty shallow since the quickest way to their heart is giving them their favorite gifts over and over again, but whatever works. Among the villagers, 10 of them can be schmoozed and married, all so you can start a big, happy family together. But I'm keeping this house small. I don't need no kids. Combat seems to be like something that would hardly cross the game's mind, but surprise, it's a pretty big part of the experience. I hit on the mines a little bit earlier, and that's the part where the Zelda, Minecraft, Terraria experience comes in. Fighting monsters is pretty similar to older Zelda titles like Link to the Past, strictly with the sword. Just like in Zelda, your sword goes a certain radius, and you can gain more powerful weapons and eventually make your character incredibly strong. Now before I get my head bit off for mentioning normie games, the Minecraft and Terraria aspect comes in with how the mines are constructed, with only a finite number of rooms, about 20 or so, that change at random as you progress, typically with the exit in a different location. This would seemingly get boring if it weren't for the rewards presented in the mines, which are incredibly lucrative. Similar to the other mentioned titles, the deeper you go, the better ores and treasure you'll find. The monsters within the caves are also sure to keep you on your toes, all the while buying or finding better equipment and loot. Fishing also plays a pretty big role in Stardew Valley, as it's needed for just about anything you'd like to upgrade. Although it does get easier as you level up, fishing is probably the biggest pain in the ass Stardew Valley has to offer. Your ability to reel in and catch large fish with what you're given and the ensuing minigame is limited to say the least, and it's the only time I felt frustrated with the game. Even still, you've got plenty of unlockable tackle and bait to help even the odds, but that does take time to acquire, which can be hard. I will say I had no issues with any delays when fishing with the controller. Stardew Valley's gamepad mode isn't perfect, but fishing is the one time I can say it worked flawlessly. If you're going to try to catch anything, you might want to look into using your favorite stick. Stardew Valley is the kind of game I can keep talking about for days. There's just so much to it for something that seems so small. The amount of value here for your money is phenomenal. Almost as phenomenal as the development team, or rather the developer. Stardew Valley has been a 4-year project for one person who goes by the handle Concerned Ape. It's absolutely crazy to think that one person could put together such an extensive title, but here we are. Stardew Valley and Concerned Ape deserve your money. It's the kind of game you'll sink entirely too much time into and won't worm its way out of your head for weeks. I haven't had a game take this much of my time in years, let alone take me away from other games. Stardew Valley is the perfect kind of game that lets you lose yourself without the frills and technical splendor of modern games, and all for a quarter of the cost.